Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3. Well, hello and good morning, everyone. Amadeus Aeon here again with another video. And a headset, finally. Took me forever, I know. But in any case, today's video is going to be another discussion forum, as the title suggests. So we're going to talk a little bit about Final Fantasy XIV stuff here today in this video. And again, this is just stuff like, how the state of the game is going, like, how I've been enjoying the game, or things maybe could be better, suggestions, and, just a lot of Final Fantasy XIV stuff. So if you're new to the channel, new to this video, then that's what we typically do in this kind of video setting. And of course, before we do that, I guess I'll do a bit of a personal update, if you will. And yeah, that's how we'll go about this video. So first, the personal update situation. So like I said earlier, I've got a new headset, new mic. I'm not sure if it's better or if it's worse. If you could let me know, that would be fantastic. So far, it's sounding very good, so we'll go forward with that in mind. And then, other than that, I'm no longer stationed on the Crystal Data Center. I decided to move over to Primal, so for all my Crystal fans, I do apologize if you ever wanted to meet in-game or whatever, but I've decided to move my main on Primal, and that's a kind of a topic we'll get into in this discussion video. So, yeah, sorry, it's been a long time, guys, since I've made a video, I know. So I'm just kind of getting readjusted to things again, and, making sure that all goes smoothly, everything is good as set in my mind. That's one of the issues we streamers go through, is like, trying to make sure things are at least decent and presentable, which it doesn't always amount to that. But hey, what can you do, all you can do is just do what you can and work things out. Without further ado, though, let's get into the discussion. So, I want to say a huge thanks to the development team for all the hard work that you do and the content that you bring us. It's very much appreciated, and, we enjoy it, the players. We really do. We enjoy the content and stuff that you give us, but there are, some criticisms, some things that we would change up, or that we wish were smoother or better, or, more of, adding more of additions to it. And that's kind of why we do these videos like these, is because it's to give some more feedback and everything, so that the dev team can understand, like, this is what's talked about. This is subjects that you know the players themselves would like them to be aware of. So, and again, huge thanks to the dev team. They're hard at work, and they're on their New Year break, I think, until the 11th or something like that. I'm not sure. I can't remember how long the Chinese or Japanese, the Japanese New Year lasts for them, but they're kind of on their break, so that's good. They deserve, a rest for all their hard work that they put in. And, before that, New Year, they did one more patch. It was just a simple minor patch, making adjustments and, allowing for people to be able to, upgrade their gear a little bit easier, and to get more weapons faster for the tome gear. And then Yoshida, the director and producer, gave us his annual, New Year's greeting, thanking us players and telling us, that they have, lots of plans in store for the year, and they hope that we all enjoy it, and so on. So, and speaking of which, I didn't say it in my New Year's video event coverage, which I usually don't have a mic with, because it's to immerse myself into the event, as well as have you guys be able to read the text without my voice going over it, or so that's why I don't really talk during event videos, because I just want the full experience to be on display. And, for you watching people that are watching, so that you can take in the music and just the whole event in general with me. So we're kind of sharing the event, you could say that way. Other than that, Happy New Year's to everyone. It's 2020 now. Fantastic. And I really hope that this year brings forth a lot of good things, not only for Final Fantasy XIV, but for gaming in general. I hope, there's a lot of cool, fun games that are released this year, and that, overall we just have a very great year. And, for myself personally, I hope that things might improve, because my personal situation isn't like the best, not the greatest, but I'm still managing to get by however I can, and I'm hoping that this year is a little more different, and that things, I guess, change for the better. And I think that goes without saying for most of us. We always hope that this year always changes us, or changes things for the better. So I hope that everyone's enjoyed their new year so far. That they started off good, and they're going throughout the year. They have a good year, and even if you did have a rough start, just don't let it get you down. Don't let it beat you up or anything. But just kind of keep your head leveled, stay standing tall, and just keep going forward. Because I'm sure that something good will come out of this year. Whether it's, significantly noticeable or not, um, everyone does have good moments and bad moments, but the good moments are the ones that truly shine, so keep your head held high. Other than that, let's get into the Final Fantasy XIV stuff now. Alright, so what I first want to go over is, you know, the quality of life really changes that we've been given so far. They have been very good, with the removal of technique points for physical damage dealing classes, like tanks and, your melee DPS and your ranged physical. Having that no longer be an issue or hindrance has really helped a lot. It makes, so much easier to just flurry through rotations and like save on, you know, time, really. It helps people get through dungeons and like raids a lot faster that way. Or, maybe push through the ad phases a little quicker in like trials and such. So, and then other minor things like what they do with the UI, making the UI more user friendly. So giving you a little more freedom, more options to customize and set things to how you like it personally. So that's a big plus for a lot of people who play Final Fantasy XIV, is that the UI has greatly improved. And there's other things like they make it a lot easier, to queue up for dungeons and, sort of guide you a little bit better, I would guess that you could say. The new player experience still has, a lot of complaints, though. Like, there's just so many quests to go through because this is a very story-driven, story-heavy kind of game. And so there's like a lot of cutscenes and lots of dialogue options and everything like that. So, and most people, that are come to the game just for like end game and like PvP, they tend to just typically skip through it all. But there's a lot to skip through, so they put up those awful, oh jeez, those very awful, terrible jump potions, which were originally available on the Korean servers, etc. And, the devs brought that concept over here to the NA and EU side of things. And, like, it just doesn't really do a very good job of teaching, like, players, in my honest opinion, the jump potions. They just don't really help a lot. They kind of just give you, a good push along that you can just, just get into the game without, like, any prior knowledge or anything. So, I strongly encourage you, if you are someone who did that or does that, you use jump potions so you can get to end game stuff like PvP, trials, farming, raiding, whatever, I strongly suggest that you at least, watch some guides, watch some videos about, your job that you're playing, the one that you wanted to main. Um, because the internet, it's a great source of knowledge. It really is. So why not use it? Utilize everything at your disposal because it really helps. It does. And, it helps not only you, like, improve upon yourself, your own performances, but you also make it easier on your allies, your party members, and your free company, and etc. You make it easier by educating yourself on how the game is supposed to work. And, even if you have questions that maybe, a video or text guide can't answer, you can talk to people in game, and usually someone will be able to screen your question here and there and be able to, help out, etc. Sorry about my dog. He's a really loud, husky breed dog. Very vocal dog. But, yeah, I mean, I really do encourage you to please, if you're gonna skip through all of the story stuff, please at least study or educate yourself. Ask questions to help you understand how to play the game at least. So, and then, let's see, let's move on now. So sorry about my dog. He was a very vocal dog, let me tell you. But, anyway, speaking of, like, the end game stuff, PvP, this new mode they've added is kind of like, capture the flag, King of Hill combined sort of thing, which is interesting concept to do, to combine both of those elements and, make them into one sort of mode. And so far, it's looking like, it's been pretty competitive, very fun, I'd say. But I feel like they still haven't quite, like, hit their mark on PvP, the development team for, like, Frontlines and, the Feast. I feel like they still haven't really found that really sweet spot to where PvP is much like at its peak, and it's something that people log in daily or weekly or weekend to do. I feel like they could definitely do more to improve on the PvP front, honestly. And, I've said this before, like, adding incentives, okay, that's one thing that does help the sport grow and people hold player interest. But, adding things like the experience points and, like, the tomestones, it just wasn't really a very good idea, in my opinion. This is just how I personally feel about that subject. So, take it with a grain of salt, however you will. Everyone has their own differences, their own opinions on how things should be run with PvP, etc. We don't need to be at each other's necks though. Let's save that for the actual PvP, shall we? That's what it's there for, so we can beat up on each other. So, but as far as how the PvP itself goes, I was not really thrilled that they made it very like that, giving those kinds of incentives where, I think the mounts and the glamour was more than enough. It was. They didn't really. There was really no it was really unnecessary to make tombstones and experience gains there because and plus they dropped the requirement level to level 30 too. Like, I just don't get that because PvP, like I said, is meant to be a competitive and endgame sport. Something that you enjoy, like, once you've reached that threshold of level, the end cap level for whatever expansion you're currently on. And, to see it be, thrown in with players that maybe haven't gained enough experience so far in the game, etc. Or they just go in because they heard, like, that it helps them level, but it doesn't teach them how to PvP, basically. And that's where I'm like some others, I'm lost and confused at what their direction was with that. Like, because they're only they're only hurting that aspect of the game rather than they are improving upon what makes it great, what makes it fun. And what I would say makes PvP fun is that the competitiveness and the contest of it, being able to pit yourself against other players that are maybe more experienced at playing their jobs or kind of at your own level or below, because then you can gauge, like, where you're at combat wise against other players and help yourself improve by adding on to your rotation and stuff. And PvP is more condensed that way, and some of the actions aren't available to you, but even still, like, I personally think that PvP is meant to be something not like 14's iteration of it. It's supposed to be a end game sports, kind of like the competitive natured type of content. And by placing the bar so low, it really, like I said, it really is damaging to the type of content, and it just makes it not very fun. When you have no direction and nothing to really teach players, like, oh, this is your first time PvPing? Okay, well, let's go over a few guidelines, shall we, etc. There's nothing in game that really demonstrates or teaches players, like, okay, this is how this PvP mode specifically works. This is your objectives, you know. Like, they covered some things in the patch notes, but those are very, like, basic. You know, they're just very common, like, basic things. They're not really in depth, and they don't really explain explicitly, like, what your goal is to achieve. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that's definitely something they need to address going forward in the future with PvP, is they need to be more specific, more detailed on what specifically players need to be doing in these PvP modes, you know. Like, if I were to word it, for example, with the new PvP, which is Onsai, Danzig, you know, I would say, I would describe it as, you know, this is a mode where you're supposed to look for the glowing ovu, which are marked spots on the map, the field, which will be marked as either red, yellow, or blue. And then, you know, the blue is your B rank, so this is worth this much points per, you know, per tick, per second. The red is worth this much, etc., etc. And you're meant to work with your party members and your alliance to capture these ovu and use them, you know, to win the game, basically. That's how I would describe it. And that would be easy for even someone who hasn't PvP'd for to understand. Be like, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to go to these little glowing spots, and I'm supposed to help my party, you know, take this spot here and claim it as ours, sort of thing, you know. Like I said earlier, it's sort of a capture a flag, king of a hill ordeal thing combined into one. So you're capturing and you're fighting to control one spot. So that's the best way I can explain that. So, and I think the devs really need to be more precise on doing that, because that will definitely help people understand what needs to be done with the PvP modes. Okay, moving on. Job adjustments and such have been good for the most part. There were a few things that had some of us scratching our heads, like, for example, since I main Samurai, they did a little adjusting on our job. They increased the rate at which we gain Shoha and meditation stacks, which, okay, that makes Shoha more usable, but they traded off by nerfing our potency to our basic combo, which I can't really understand, like, why they did that specifically just for one skill. And it's one skill basically that you only get at level 80. You know, it's basically a level 80 skill. And, you know, what's a samurai main supposed to do, you know, when they go to lower level content, because, you know, we have the roulette system, right? And that helps us, you know, cap our weekly tomes and everything, or, you know, get experience points if we're leveling samurai. But like, what are we supposed to do in that's those situations when we're in that kind of content, low level content? You basically handicap, you basically, damaged us in that lower level content because you've dropped the potency that made us strong enough to keep up with the other DPS classes. So I don't know why they did that, and I hope I hope they formulate some way to fix that or address it, really. And then there were some healer things that were changed. I'm not really, a healer guy, so I don't know a whole lot about the topics of healing, but a lot of healers are kind of, bothered by some of the adjustments, so they're looking at that as well. But Red Mage, they're looking at Red Mage and Monk jobs as well. There's been a few complaints there too, so I'm just hoping, like they just find, a good balance is all. Okay, so let's see. We talked about quality of life, PvP, and this. So, um, the community has been growing. We're seeing a lot of new faces, new players. Again, as people are, trying out this game for the first time, which is always welcomed and always appreciated. And of course, like I said, there are some people who will skip ahead of all the story stuff, specifically to get to things like PvP or trials and raiding. But please, for the love of gods, please, will you at least learn how to play your job and play this game? Please. There is a lot of guides out there on the internet, I assure you. In fact, my channel even has some guides for things, so if you're one of those people, please study our guides. Please know what you're doing, and don't just assume, it's okay. It's gonna work out because, you're just gonna make your party members mad at you. So please, if you are gonna skip through everything and just not level or just jump to, a farther up to where you can just level, a short while, please at least study. Educate yourself. Ask questions to people in game if you don't know. Please, please, please do that. But, welcome all the same, all you new faces to the game. We're very happy to have you, and we hope you have a good experience with Final Fantasy XIV and just have a good time here. And then, there's another topic I wanted to talk about, which I kind of touched upon a little earlier in this video. And that's with Crystal Data Center. So let's talk about that for a few minutes here, shall we? So, for those of you who are not aware, with the coming of patch 4.8, prior to that, the patch before that, the devs patched in a new in-game feature to where we could travel and move between servers on a data center. And it's been going pretty well. It's a very wonderful feature. It makes it so that you can go to other places, other servers on that data center, um, learn what the communities, different communities are like on that data center, and just kind of come together really more as a bigger, like, centralized community. And plus, you can make a lot more friends too. So, you know, it's a great feature. It really is. But I'm sorry about the dogs, guys. I was hoping they would be good, but you know how dogs are. They get rowdy, they get rough, they start yelling at each other and stuff. So I okay. Sorry about that. I was trying to get them to quiet down. Okay. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The world visit feature has been a very wonderful community experience and community building sort of feature. So, huge props and thanks for the dev team for allowing such a feature to exist and work really well within Final Fantasy XIV. But the situation on Crystal kind of has dwindled a lot. And what I'm saying is that it's not like there's not players there. There is. But it's the type of players that are there that is kind of a bit of a situation. Okay, so. And I'm really not trying to be biased here either. Like, because I have a few friends who are still on Crystal and such. And they're really great people. They're very friendly, very nice. They're generous and kind. But there is a vast majority of players, okay, on Crystal that don't really necessarily like to do content in game, to put it bluntly. And like, playing casually, playing socially, it is a choice and an option for you. It's a play style, is what they call it. It's a play style to play casually, play socially. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's not. If that's your reason for playing Final Fantasy XIV, that's what you enjoy most about 14 is socializing and casual gaming, then that's fine. That's perfectly fine. There's not a problem with that at all per se. I'm not judging you if that's how you want to play the game, basically. But for others, that can kind of conflict with their stylized play style, and it causes, friction and conflict when, like I said, when the vast majority there on Crystal is a base of casual social play styles. So what that means, for the rest of the play styles, and there's any multiple number of play styles, some people combine more than one play style into their own centralized play style. And for those who generalize their play style for hardcore, midcore, like I said, there's a lot of friction and a lot of backlash, you could say, when the vast majority of people playing on your data center are just there to play casually and socially. Because what that spells out, basically, is that, these players are not going to do endgame, okay? They're not going to do raiding. They're not going to do a lot of PvP. They might do some, but they're not going to do a lot of it. They're not going to farm extreme fights if they're too difficult or too challenging for them. And they're just going to keep playing socially, They're just going to just be there to chat, to hang out. And that's it, really. Or they'll try something once, they'll do it until, it's done, until they got what they wanted, they got, whatever they wanted, glamour, the minion amount, whatever, and then they'll just stop. They won't repeat it again. They won't. I'm really trying here, guys. I'm really trying here not to come off as, like biased or elitist or anything like that. I'm really trying my best not to sound that way. But it's just something that's disappointing, and it's really upsetting, to players like me who consider ourselves to be mid-core and, or other players who are hardcore who, we want to play this game, basically. We want to do stuff. That's why we're here, is because we want to do the stuff that's in game. And we want to help others, do stuff too. So, to have, like I said, a majority just not care or even bother to do things again after they've done it once. Like, say you had a friend, especially, who's saying, hey, I want to do this, would you come along? And you're just like, no, I'm not feeling that, sorry, I've done that 100 times, I just don't want to do it anymore, that kind of attitude. And unfortunately, that's the kind of attitude that's mostly there on Crystal. I'm going to be honest here, that is basically how it is, And, I'm not saying, that this is all on them, on the players. No. part of it is on the development team's fault as well. And I'll explain why that is here. So, I've already partially explained it, in fact, with the whole world visit system. So what they did with that is, they created a whole new data center. Okay, that's Crystal, the one we're talking about. But it's not consisting of new servers like the ones that EU received, or, the Japan received. It's not like those those new data centers that they received. What they did is they did a lot of, I guess, research, supposedly, on, what communities are like in these different servers. And they said, oh, hey, you know what? I think that I've heard and looked up that these servers here, here, and here, they like to play specifically for a social, casual atmosphere. They like role-playing a lot, so let's take, let's take those places and, let's group them together. That way, they'll all be together and they'll not like have any issues with each other, etc. They're of like mind, etc. Oh, that was their shortcoming. Really, it's really come back to bite them, and it bites hard. It really does. And it's part of the reason why I decided to leave Crystal behind. And it wasn't an easy decision, let me tell you. I'm really not excited to do that, because, like I said, I have friends that were on there. I had a house, and I stayed there for, 2 years. For 2 years I've been a part of that Amadeus server. And it's just changed, and not in a good way. I do sound sad right now because, it is disheartening when you have to leave a place that you've called home for so long. Because the devs were too short-sighted to see what this segregation, that's what it is, okay? There's no better word to describe it. It's segregation of groups that they think in their mind are going to work out okay, but really it's not. And it's deeply, it's deeply upsetting. It is. But I had to say goodbye to some really good friends and move over to, Primal, because, I did some digging, some research myself into what Primal's data center is all about, what types of content they do, and it's been real great so far. I found a new great group to chill with. I've, as you can see, I was able to get a house again. But it's just really rough having to, leave everything behind. And I hope the dev team does see this video, or someone clips this particular section of the video, because I'm not alone when I say these words. It really was just devastating. To have that conflict, that friction of the casually social players who really don't want to do any sort of endgame content more than once. And they don't want to do it to help a friend or anything like that. A group member, FC member. When an FC member or friend asks, they just solely want to be there for the role play, for the chatting, and that's it. And it's really sad to see that happen to a community that was really great. It was fantastic community throughout all of Stormblood, even in Heaven's Ward, and the beginning of Shadowbringers too. It was a fantastic and beautiful community. And now it's just crumbling to dust now. And it's really, really tragic and really sad to see. And I had to make that hard decision, like I said, to, give up my home of 2 years there. Say goodbye to some good friends, because it's just not gonna work, for me. I'm someone who is compelled to do things. That's the type of gamer I am, is I would rather be out there doing things with people and making the most out of the game that I pay for, using every bit of that subscription time before it's gone. I can't, I've told the friends I was saying goodbye to, I can't afford to play socially, you know. I'm sorry I got a little personal there, but it's really not a good situation for the Crystal Data Center right now. And I really hope, like I said, development team, if you're watching, please take my message to heart. The message of all of us who've essentially made that difficult choice to say goodbye to a failing, crumbling decision that you made with Crystal. It really is just been emotional and hard on some of us that, lived there for a while. We had friends, we had groups, but those groups started leaving. They started abandoning because of the friction, conflict between play styles. Because the majority, like I said, vast majority of play styles there is just socially and casual, and they don't give a damn about doing endgame content more than like once a week, if that even. And like I said, it's very sad and upsetting. But anyway, if I could make a suggestion to fixing the problem with Crystal, what I would do then is start introducing a daily reward system. A system which rewards players for actually playing, the game, doing the content in game. I think that really needs to happen in order for that data center to be saved, essentially. And, they've already done certain things like that. They've tested the waters, like, for example, with that Moogle event thing, where they brought back, previous rewards from the previous expansions for this currency so that players can earn that and work together and have something to be working towards. Right? And they can get these rewards like more than once, because it's just stays there, and they can they can farm the content that it says to do with these Moogle things, daily. And what I would actually do then, developers, if you're listening, if you come and watch this video or someone clips it and sends it to you, what I would suggest doing with the daily reward system is have it rotate like on a daily or weekly basis. Probably I would say, daily basis would be good. Have the objective change like every day. So let's say, for example, okay, here's your daily rewards here. Okay, so in order for you to obtain, this amount of currency, for example, you have to do, binding coils turn 5. Okay, you need to get a group and you need to go and do that, for example. And this will reward you 3 tokens, okay? So there you go. You get a group together, you go and do the content, and there you go. You just got your 3 tokens. Done. You can do this for all the old content that no one wants to do anymore, or content that people are not doing consistently. Alright? So you can throw in old dungeons in there. You can throw in old trials fights there. And people will do it, as you've seen, development team, as you've seen with the Moogle thing. People will do it so long as the rewards are worth it to them. They will do it. So that's one thing that really needs to happen for that Crystal Data Center, and for, just for all the data centers in general. That would keep this game alive, keep it active. Because there's a lot of times developers, and I know you're aware of this. I know especially Naoki Yoshida has said this before, that players go on breaks periodically from 14 and they go to play other games for a while, or they they just go on breaks and then they come back like weeks later or months later or years later, and then they'll have all this content to do. But guess what, devs? I'm telling you this now, okay? I'm going to be very assertive and very aggressive here. That old content is not going to stay relevant. And that's another thing Naoki Yoshida says. Yes, content's not always going to stay relevant. Okay, so this is contradicting his idea of, look, they're going to have a lot of things to do when they get back. Yeah, well, it's not going to be, but, it's not going to be relevant because people are not going to do the content. That's contradiction right there, my dear friend Yoshida. And you probably didn't catch that because, you work long hours, you get tired. I understand that, okay? I know that there's lots of work, and sometimes there's piles and piles of work that piles up, and you're just going to get sidetracked eventually. But you yourself have said that. You've said content, it just stops becoming relevant. But here you are again, you're saying, oh, go take breaks. Come back, there will be lots for you to do. Don't worry, you'll be able to catch up. Well, I don't think you've really analyzed your community that strongly. And I think you really need to start doing so, because what's going on with Crystal right now is a nightmare. It's a mess. It's deteriorating there because of the short-sightedness decisions that your teams decided upon to segregate a group of casual and role players all into one data center. And the conflict that happened there caused a mass exodus or mass abandonment of that place. And now it's in a rut. And players like me have had to make a hard choice of leaving behind friends and a community that was once great, like I said. So I would start drafting up and getting to work on that. Honestly, seriously, dev team. I would start getting to work on the daily reward system that's similar, if not the same, as the Moogle's Tome system. Because that's going to make activity booming on a large scale. Not just for this Crystal Data Center, but for all the data centers. It's going to increase the activity rate. And it's going to get people to do old content that you say becomes irrelevant after some time. And the people that you're telling to take breaks and come back and they'll be able to easily catch up, they cannot. Okay, they cannot. Because it's irrelevant, like you said. So people are not going to go back and do them because they have no purpose or point to go back and do them. So, really, it needs to happen. And the other thing specifically for Crystal, if you're going to salvage anything for it, because you have the data, right now, Ether is packed full. You've listed them as congested servers. Primal, which I'm on, you've listed as standard and congested worlds. There's only one world on Primal right now that is a preferred world. But guess what? As more people are going to keep abandoning Crystal, they're going to come over to places like Famfrit and fill it to where it's standard, okay? Or even congested. What's going to happen, when both Ether and Primer are congested? Well, you're going to start asking them to transfer back over to Crystal and give them all these perks or whatever. But it's just going to be a vicious cycle of repetition over and over and over again. So I'm trying to make a helpful suggestion here so that you can fix and address it. So my next suggestion here then is that you should add one new data center to the Crystal Data Center. A completely brand new server, okay? Not one that exists now. Don't just toss some random one from another place in there. No. A completely brand new server. Add it to Crystal. Add the daily reward system. Make it just like the Moogle Tome system. And have it rotate daily on objectives that need to be done in order for them to achieve their token claims. And let's say, the max they can earn of tokens a day is 30 tokens, okay? Okay, great. I can earn 30 tokens a day, so that means I can consistently do those objectives every day and get like some tokens. And my max is 30, so if I max out my 30 tokens, okay, well, I'm done for the day then. Or I can go do something else in game for a while, or chat, do my friends, groups, whatever. And that's how you rectify this situation, devs. Okay? This will breathe. I guarantee you it will breathe life back into Crystal. And, it will make people who left, like me, go back into those servers that are becoming non-existent or just ghost towns. We will go back if activity increases again and you add another server, a completely new server to the roster of Crystal, so that, all these people that are in the congested worlds can start to see, oh, hey, hey, this place is starting to get really big, it's starting to get good. Yeah, so like, those are my proposals to you, dev team, is you need to do this. Okay, you need to do this if you're going to have any hope of saving that data center's community. Or salvage, whatever's left of it. And like I said, I did a heart-wrenching message before I did this passive aggressiveness. If someone wants to go ahead and clip that and either post it or share it on things like Reddit, Twitch, or Twitter. In fact, I might just clip it myself, in fact. Up to this point. I might just clip it myself and upload it to the Facebook group of mine, to the Twitter of mine. And tell people, share it around. Let's get this message out there, that this needs to happen. Crystal's data center is in jeopardy right now. So, you know, let's get the message out there to the dev teams. They need to know this. They need to understand what's going on with Crystal right now. They really do. Okay, so I'm sorry that went on more than it should have, but let's move on. Another suggestion I want to make for development is, this is another PvP one, but I want them to expand upon the dueling system. I think the dueling system is fantastic. It held a lot of promise when it was released, and it still holds lots of promise. But they can do a lot more with it. Like every other MMO out there that has a PvP element, they also have a system like the dueling here where you can challenge other players to a simple short fight, and there's no cost, there's no stakes. I mean, the players themselves, like, they can make their own stakes, like, say, they're making a bet with each other, saying, I can wipe the floor with your level something paladin, and then you'll owe me like 15,000 gil or something like that. Or you'll owe me a minion or mount, whatever, Well, that's between the two players, that doesn't really affect the system itself. And with the other MMO games, this dueling can be done just anywhere in the open world. That's not like a central city or hub. Like, people can just go at it, they can duel each other, and that's what I think would be wonderful for Final Fantasy XIV to also adapt into its core of PvP. And I've seen a forum post of this as well on the official forums. Someone's also suggesting the same idea, and that's like fantastic. I'm on board with that too. I'd really like them to do such a thing, because this opens so many opportunities for this dueling feature to become like a widely used feature and a fun feature to use. And so, people like with that feature, they can host tournaments and have a prize for the top competitor who wins the tournament, etc. And, it would just be, like a really nice addition, a quality of life addition to the game as well. And for, like, you could even add, like, achievement rewards to it. Like, say, duel this many times, and you'll earn this title, or duel this many times and you earn this mount, And, like, you could even have people earn, the PvP currency from doing it too. Like, let's say, if each time you win a duel match, you're going to earn, let's say, like, 100 seals, the PvP seals, each time you are victorious in a duel. So, there's some gain to doing it there. You know what I'm saying? It won't be just like a social, just casual thing. It will actually have like some gain to it. So, that's one thing they could do with that dueling system is add it to make it so that, people can challenge each other to a duel like just on any open front map that isn't like a city or hub. And, like I said, add achievements for doing it. Maybe add a weekly challenge log for it too. So, say, win a duel. Okay, that gives you, this amount of seals or gil, whatever. Win 5 duels or, participate in this many duels, etc. Earn this much gil or this many, marks. I guess is what they call the PvP thing, marks, earn this many marks. And, just go from there, you know, add new rewards to uh, the Wolves Den thing for doing dueling, because this will give people something to work towards, and it'll be something different from Frontlines and the Feast, because let's be honest, Feast, it gets fun for a while, and Frontlines, it's fun for a while, but then it just becomes something, you do to cap your weekly tomes and whatnot, because you've already gotten all the mounts or whatever from it, so it just becomes one of those ordeals, those type of ordeals sort of things, so I would definitely like to see them, add on to the dueling, like make it more, I can't think of a good word. Make it more accessible, basically. And then, I think in one of my other videos, I want to say it again, of course, I had an idea for a new content that they could possibly add. Add like, a puzzle dungeon for, solo. Something you can do solo. Or maybe with 4 players, I guess. Like give it a sort of classic, RPG dungeon style. Like a dungeon that has puzzles to it. And those puzzles could change, depending on what floor or maybe what level you're on. So I guess it could be very deep dungeon-ish, kind of. I think that would be, something really neat, really cool to do, is to have dungeons that have to have puzzles that you solve either on your own or, like I said, with other players. And that would be fantastic and phenomenal, honestly. Um, another another thing I want to suggest or do feedback on is it's been a long time, devs. It's been like, oh, 10 years now since the initial launch of Final Fantasy XIV. according, to Yoshida in his New Year message. 11 years for him because, that's when he started working on it. But and the dungeons, the queue system, I think needs some perking up and such. I really do. I think it needs to be reworked in some way. Which I know what the official dev response would be to rework is like, okay, well, this is going to cost so and so resources or money or whatever, this is going to require some effort and it could be stressful on the servers. Okay, well, while that is true, it's still an idea. A very nice quality of life idea, in fact. That would increase user experience phenomenally. And so, what my suggestion here is, basically, is I think it would be fantastic and a very wonderful idea if, normal dungeons can adapt to the Palace of the Dead and the Heaven on High queue system. Because, some stuff just takes forever to queue up for. It really does. So if they are adding this to dungeons, I say dungeons specifically because I know it's unrealistic that will ever be added for roulettes or for raids or trials, because those are meant to be harder stuff to do. So therefore, you will need a tank and a healer within your party composition to be able to clear said content. But for dungeons and specifically, if they could rework that so that, any role, any job can queue up and be partied with, like, a party of, like, all DPS, or a party of all tanks, or a party of, like, with one tank and 3 DPS, or a party with healer, 3 DPS, or, whatever. Then that would really, push things along and get things moving along much faster overall. And people would get their clears faster, their dungeon experience faster, just everything, without having to spam like Palace of the Dead or Heaven on High like 1,000 or so times just to level up, etc. So that is another suggestion, and for quality of life, I think would be fantastic for the game to have. Other than that, Shadowbringers had a successful launch. It was phenomenal. We reached a higher record of subscribed players, of active users. It was something like in the billions range of active players, subscribers, when Shadowbringers launched. And there was a lot of new players coming in as well. New players who wanted to jump in and try the game, still is quite a few new faces coming in because, people are spreading the word around, hey, come join us in this game, it is amazing, it is awesome. And it really shows through, been showing through with Shadowbringers thus far, anyway. And I've been really happy with Shadowbringers myself. Other than, the thing I got all worked up on just a few, like 10 minutes ago there. But overall, this expansion has been successful, and it's my hope that in this year this expansion remains so, it remains to be successful. And as far as the content spacing thing goes, oh, sorry, I had to yawn there for a minute. But as far as the spread out content thing goes, I think it's okay, but I wish that like they would make it spread out like from 2 weeks apart instead of, like 3 or 4. Like have one patch release 1 month and the next month release the other one. I would like for them to like have a patch be out for 2 weeks and then the week after the 2 weeks, push out the new the new content within that specific patch. So that way players are having more, or the veteran players I should say, sorry, I need to be more specific there. The pre-existing players, the players who've been around, like forever, like me, so that we have more stuff to occupy our time with. I mean, if it's possible. Like I know sometimes content needs to be pushed back because they found they found like a glitch or like a bug as they were doing the testing within the allotted time they have, and it's frustrating, I'm sure, when that happens because then they have to go through all of it again and then they have to recode and remove certain things and redo them. I know that's probably something that's a major headache, but I would just like within reason, I guess, to see the spaced out content at least within have the major like stuff, the story stuff, main story, a raid be released, I guess, first, and then let that simmer for like 2 weeks, maybe a third week if like I said, they run into any complications or issues while they're doing their testing, etc. And they need to push back something a week, then that's fine. But if they can get it, pushed out or released in a pretty decent form, we don't need repeats of Diadem or Eureka, please. I think that's not a road we need to keep traveling down. No. We can be patient, I assure you. People can be patient and wait for you to make that content that you have planned specifically playable and workable we can wait until you've achieved that. So don't beat your heads on your desks too hard, devs. Don't work yourselves to death. Just trying to meet the scheduled deadline, just make the content work and make it enjoyable. That's all that we, your community, ask of you, is to just do that. And another thing I forgot to thank the dev team for is something that they've really addressed a lot this year, and that's they've addressed you know um, gender equality, for the characters' genders, and by that they're making it so like certain types of gear that's available in game can be worn neutrally by both genders, male, female. And, I really like that myself, being someone who's been a part of the LGBT community. I really enjoy that they're doing that. So, huge thank you for putting all that extra work into doing that dev team. It's much appreciated. It's greatly appreciated that you would do that for a part of your community, a group, centralized group in your community. And it really shows that you care and listen to the words we have to express to you, and that's wonderful. And the dev team, they've always been great at doing that since Naoki Yoshida took over, as producer and director. They've been very great about communication between, their subscriber base, their player base. And in fact, when Shadowbringers launched, there was a whole big outrage, I guess, over Viera and Hrothgar not being able to having the same availability of headgear like all the other playable races. So, they kind of felt people who were planning to switch, or they did switch, felt like betrayed by the developers who designed and made these models. So those same developers, they heard people's ire, they heard their complaints, they heard their sorrows, I guess. And they decided, oh, you know what, let's just work on this in our off time. So they actually did that. They worked in their off time. This was out without notifying Yoshida, by the way. And they basically worked on, like, I think it was over 100 items, like head pieces in the game, and they're like, yeah, now it works for them. They can wear it. So, gosh, that was like one of the highlight moments at the start of Shadowbringers right there, and man, it's just incredible that they did that. And like I said, with the gender thing here, allowing, certain clothing pieces to be equipable by male and female, it's phenomenal. It's why I love this game. It's one of the reasons why I love this game is because, the developers are um, they're very generous and kind to their community, their player base. At least, mostly. I kind of think, the guy who does some of the battle content, I kind of think he has something against us. Like, some content can be so punishing, and so difficult to do for players, even the hardcore players. And I think that's his this battle dev's way of saying, yeah, I'm gonna smack you good. I don't like you players. You get on my nerves, etc. It's his revenge. I think that's what it is. It's his revenge. And I think it's even more hilarious because it just completely goes over Yoshida's head too. He just like, okay, I'll allow it. uh, so, other than that, I think, like I said, I think, you know, they do a great job of bringing us stuff. Quality of life changes everything. And that's where that's where I was hoping we could leave this video off on, was something positive, uplifting, and also there's a new patch coming, you guys, soon-ish. Like, not in this month, soonish, but next month for sure. We're getting a new patch 5.2, and from what the developers, or the director, and Fox Clan, and what they've said from the live letter, you know, and this was before Christmas time. They said that you know this story is going to be like leading to the climax of this expansion's main story. And I'm like, ooh, ooh, I'm like all giddy. I'm like a like a kid opening his Christmas presents all over again. Like, and plus, like, that's so soon and so sudden. That they would close off the story like so soon. Granted, I mean, he did say this is a part one, so like it's only like half of it, but like there's probably going to be like in this half alone, like a lot to take in from it. And I'm just like, oh, and I am hyped for that. And then there's a new Eden raid tier coming out. Which is okay. A lot of people are going to be hyped about that too, so that's cool. And then another real big thing that gets people really excited, like both mid-core, casual, and just all of them, is the relic weapons. Yeah, we really love them relic weapons. And so they said that's coming out. It's I guess I should say this right now before we continue. This will be a bit of spoilers. Sorry about that. I'm just making sure my headset is still working and everything. My new headset that I just invested in. So yep. So this will kind of be spoilers. So if you haven't completed a Realm Reborn, or you skipped through it, or you're on the Gunbreaker job quests right now, you're probably gonna want to leave this video on mute for about, I'd say 20 minutes. Maybe less, maybe 15, 10, because this is huge spoilers for part of those stories. So go ahead now. You know, mute the video, mute your headset or whatever, TV, whatever you're watching on. Go ahead and mute that now. And I'm going to go ahead now and reveal what this relic weapon thing is. So, okay, so this new relic weapon, which it gets everyone excited every time they do a new relic. It's going to be very much like the Eureka systems that they added in Eureka, is what they've hinted at. So, like the Logos actions, like the treasure map thing with the bunny, that kind of sort of thing, ordeal. Hopefully not the elemental wheel, because, oh my god, that was, it was so awful. Please, never again, Dev Team, never, no elemental wheels anymore, please. Please, 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 please don't do elemental wheels. And see, my dog agrees with me out there too, you heard him. No elemental wheel, he said. So yeah, please, no elemental wheel again. And well, yeah, this new relic weapon setting, it takes place in an area called Bozja Citadel. This is why I said spoilers, because the Bozja Citadel is a place the Garleans took over. Like near, it's like really close to Garlemald. Okay, so it was like the very first place that they subjugated and took control over. And it also happened to be a native home to the Hrothgar race, or Ronso, as they're called on the source. So, I know the naming conventions are kind of confusing, but just know that on the first shard, the first shard that split off from the main world, on that world they're called Hrothgar, spelled Hrothgar, Hrothgar, or however you pronounce that. I think that word is like Norwegian or Dutch. I know it's something like there in the Netherlands kind of language, but I pronounce it as Hrothgar. And then over on the source, the main world, they're called the Ronso, which, if you're a Final Fantasy X fan, or you've played Final Fantasy X, you should be very familiar with what the Ronso are. Just like, they're just basically like this big, like, humongous, tall race of, like, lion-like people. And they typically will have horns, like, on their forehead, protruding from their forehead. So, that's the Ronso, and this this Baja Citadel was like their main home for the longest time. Okay, so and some to give you a bit of a lore about the Baja Citadel. So basically, like I said, it was main home of the Ronso. Their queen lived there and everything, and they were the ruling, the ruling tribe of this Baja Citadel, etc. And the Garleans, they were beginning their campaigns of conquest, to claim territories as their own and generalize them into provinces, basically. And so the Garleans started marching into, their into their lands. And interestingly, the Garleans didn't have gun blades at this point in time because see, they adapted Allegan technology because this is another spoiler. Sorry about the dogs. I know they're being rowdy again, but the Garleans adapted Allegan technology through their emperor, Solus Solscalvis, who is revealed to be the Ascian known as Emmett Selk. And he basically brought them Garlean technology because he could see basically their ethereal something or other was very weak, so they couldn't use it to create magic like the Eorzeans or the Eastern nations. They couldn't produce magics or mana, so he basically decided, okay, well, they're useless when it comes to arcane arts and magics, so I'm gonna go ahead and give them the technology of this ancient this ancient civilization. So he dug it up, he gave it to the technicians of Garlemald and stuff, and they're like, oh, this is cool. So then they create with the blueprints, they created what they've dubbed Magitech, which, I mean, if you've played Final Fantasy by now a lot, you're pretty much familiar. Magitech just means like mechas, cars, just anything to do with like cybernetics or robotics, high technological devices, all that stuff. They called it Magitech, and there was this big Magitech movement. And the main scientist who led the movement was Sid's dad. Gosh, I lost his name. Oh, jeez. Oh, man, I can't remember his name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but Sid Garland's dad was was the main scientist leading the Magitech movement, and so they started tampering around with ancient Allegan technology too, and they modeled a lot of their Magitech after Allegan designs and such, because Solus, he basically dug up the blueprints for them, and like, the old, I guess the old unused machina, I guess. And he shared it with them, so they created their own version of it and they called it Magitech. And so that's all they had. They didn't have gun blades at first. The gun blades is something that they stole specifically from, the first territory they laid claim to, the Bajja Citadel. Because that was actually one of the weapons that the Ronso made and used, was the gunblade. And they called their art Gunbreaker. Which is a real funny name, I think the Gunbreaker, the reason why they called that is because the Garlands probably, before they stole their gun blades, they probably just used like standard like pistols and, ammunition type guns, fire cannons, all that. That's probably all that they used when they were conquering Bosja. But then the knights, you had these Ronso knights carrying around these big old weapons that had like a gun trigger attached to them, and they really just like do some damage on on their Magitech, I guess. So the Guardians are like, this is some pretty interesting tech these savages are using, so we're gonna just go ahead and steal it. And they did, so that's why the Garleans have gun blades. But anyway, another thing that happened with Bajja Citadel, what was the deciding factor in conquering it, was that Sid's dad, again, he was leading this project. They call it Project Meteor, where basically they were creating a device, a homing beacon of sorts, which would directly fuse contact with, at the time, the Red Moon Dalamud, which is why, as I said, this is like spoiler territories if you didn't pay attention to Realm Reborn's story all too much, or you skimmed through it, etc. But this big, like, floating moon object, which they call Dalamud, it was just kind of sitting up there in the sky, and the Garleans are like, oh, you know what? That looks interesting. So they took their airships and inspected it closer, and they're like, oh, this is like a giant satellite space station sort of thing. So they're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and seize control over this. So they made some science-y technology stuff to make it, work for them. But on their, in the process of them exploring in it, they found, holy cow, there's a monster dragon in here. Is this the fabled icons that our emperor said was a blight upon our world? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, so he's like the power, the battery of this thing. And so they basically made a device where they could channel out its, Bahamut's power from it, which was not such a good idea. It kind of caused him to wake up a little from slumber, and boy, was he pretty pissed off. So he ignited a beam from Dalamud for using his wrath, his rage, and that beam came hurling down to the Bajra Citadel, and it just wiped it out. So it's basically a ruin now. It's ruins now, basically. And that's where we're going on our quest to find a new relic weapon. Find, I guess, weapon parts that we can fuse with our existing weapons, I guess. So, with it, like I said, adopting some of Eureka things to it, like the kind of like the logos system, and you know, the treasure hunt with the bunny sort of thing, and the fate chain thing. You know, it will be pretty interesting. I just pray that there's no de-leveling. Okay, that shit was incredibly infuriating as all hell. Especially when you were working on it for like an hour, and then, you know, all of a sudden you get one-shotted by this one mob, and then, you know, tough shit, you know, you just lost half of your experience bar from that death alone. So half of your hour's progress was gone, and that was incredibly, you know, frustrating. So I pray they do not do that again. And again, like I said, no elemental wheels, please. No more of that. So, and I think Yoshida was very specific in the live there. He said, they're only taking, you know, the best parts, the best things about Eureka, according to, you know, the player feedback, which, you know, that in itself is suggestive. It's very highly suggestive of what that actually means. So I'm really hoping by that he means not the elemental wheels and not the de-leveling, because that was ignoring. He also said this new relic is going to be a lot like you're gonna be able to do it things on your own, basically. He said you're not gonna have to rely on like people to have to carry you through the content, basically. He said there will be elements which are kind of like older relics where you can just, I guess what he means is that it would be like a lot like spamming fates all over again. So that's probably what I'm thinking it means. That you're just gonna like be spamming fates on your own. Don't have to have a party to rely on. And if you die, you know, you're not gonna have to call out or shout, hoping a healer is nearby. So that's good. And, you know, I hope it turns out as good content and stuff. The other thing he said they're adding is more trials, of course. This is been standard for, you know, the expansion releases so far. They always add like a new trial set of series. So For example, with the last expansion, the trial set was the Four Lords, and the one before that was the Warring Triad. Um, so, and this time they revealed on the first one's the Ruby weapon. So that's pretty cool because a lot of people who have played Final Fantasy are like, oh, that's cool. So that means we're getting Ruby weapon, the Diamond weapon, and the other weapon, not the Omega weapon, because we already got him. So, but Ruby, Diamond, Topaz. No, not Topaz. Shoot, I can't remember what the green one's name was. I'm sorry. It's been forever. But yeah, the Ruby, the Diamond. We'll be getting those guys as our trials, so that's pretty cool. And then more Ishgard stuff. There's going to be more Ishgard rebuilding stuff. This time they said, of course, that rather than it being focused primarily like on just crafting classes like it was, which was really kind of sad. Like only time like a gatherer could be involved was during the little event things, which I wasn't able to be awake for most of them. But this time, gatherers will have more of a role in Ishgard restoration. They're reopening the diadem, however you wish to pronounce it. And sorry about the dogs again. They will be dogs. They'll be loud and vocal. But yeah, the diadem will be back again. And it's going to be it's not going to be a battle at all. It's just going to be gathering. And so, and in fact, there will be monsters, but you're not going to have to fight them, but like, I guess you're going to be using like your stealth ability in there, and you're going to like chip off like pieces of their body or something. I don't know how a gatherer gets away with that, but hey, I guess they're making it so. There's gonna be lots of memes centered around that, I'm sure. Yeah, they're gonna be chipping off like parts of these monsters or creatures in the datum, and then there'll be like nodes and stuff in the datum for gatherers to go and grab and just kind of farm up, and then they'll be turning in materials to the rebuilding, the reconstruction efforts, and get more of the same scripts, the cloud or whatever scripts they were called. And they said there would be gathering specific rewards too, so crafters, you're not the only ones now who will get their own thing. Us gatherers are gonna get our stuff now too, and you can go in datum. I guess you're gonna be able to go in the datum at level 30, so you can use it to level your gathering too. So I don't know how good the experience points will be, but we'll find out, I guess. But I think that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. I have a level 50 botanist and, a level 50 miner. I'll probably use them because I don't use them frequently as I should. I like I was saying earlier in the video, I'm someone who has to be doing something, and it has to be something that holds my my attention for a good while. Otherwise, I just teeter off and get bored. But that will be something added to the reconstruction. So, and then there's another secret trial they said they're adding, which we'll find out what that is. Whenever this next live letter will be. I'm thinking it will probably be sometime this month. Before they maybe I think it will probably be like after they finish their New Year's. So whenever that is and they get back to the office, they'll probably post an announcement like saying, "Hey, this is when the next live letter will be at this time, so be there and we'll talk about the rest of patch 5.2." So, but yeah, there's a secret trial that they were mentioned, and people are like, "Oh, what is it? Oh, is it Hildebrand?" Because they've received a lot of feedback with the Hildebrand quest stuff. Like, people are like, "Can we please have trials back in Hildebrand? Those were so fun. Can we please have them again?" So, they're like, "Yeah, I guess we can work on that again." And so we got a Yojimbo trial back in Stormblood because, people really wanted, the trials to go back to Hildebrand. So, I mean, it's possible that's what it is, but maybe not. Maybe it's, maybe they'll surprise us with it. Maybe it's, like a main story related trial. Could be that, but we'll certainly find out. And then, I think they'll just go, over what the quality of life that they're adding to 5.2, etc. So, it's cool, and I'm looking forward to it. So, that's all I wanted to announce there for you guys. So, and like I said, I've been enjoying Shadowbringers so far. It's been a really amazing expansion. We're seeing a lot of returning faces, a lot of new faces coming back, playing 14 again. And I just, it's really awesome, I'm really happy for that. As far as settling into my new data center year, it's been going pretty well. Like I said, I found a new group to chill with. They all seem like really nice people, very friendly. I got a house again. I was able to, find which server on Primal has the most housing plots available, which I'm not going to mention because I don't want, you know, conflict to occur because I said something. So I'm going to leave that to your imagination on what server that is that I'm on. So, but yeah, there was a lot of housing plots available, so I was able to get a plot. And, it's the community here, it feels pretty relaxed, and, I can tell they really like, to doing stuff. which that's really great. You know, uh, I'm really glad that that's something that they do, and I hope that it stays that way. As it was really hard on me what happened on Crystal. So anyway, guys, thanks for so much for watching, being part of the video, etc. If you were watching me live, or just watching through this video, if you watch it later on and such. And hopefully, like again I said, this year is a fantastic year for Final Fantasy 14, for you, for me, for gaming. And yeah, so take care, everyone. You have a good 2020, and I will see you in our next video. Goodbye.